Get started just a second as everyone filters in. It takes a while for everyone to get let in. So.
Hi, everybody. We're just waiting for people to come in to the from the waiting room. So just bear with us a minute or two.
Hey, it looks like it's leveling off. You want to go ahead and get started?
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our first Zoomed in of 2021. I'm happy to be here as your president this morning, and I'm delighted to see how many people are joining the call this morning. And there's still a few people filtering in now, which I'm sure they'll do over the next few minutes. We do have a guest speaker this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to go over some information and then introduce our speaker. Ryan.
Thank you very much, Annie. Thank you so much for being here and starting your year off as the president of the association this year. Wanted to go over a few slides as we normally do before we get into Gay, our speaker from the National Association of Realtors, just to update you on a couple of things going on. And once want to thank the Cooperative Bank Cape Cod as always for being our sponsor here. They have really stepped up and really provided this, and so we thank them for that. Couple things. We have live CE via Zoom available every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Class topics and signups are available on our website through April 14th. I did want to highlight an upcoming class that the Cape Cod Island Association of Realtors just wrote and got approved by the state education license subcommittee as a new CE curriculum, which will be February 10th. It'll be protecting the protected classes in real estate. So it really goes beyond just fair housing. You know, we've always had that fair housing CE course, but we stepped up and wrote this new curriculum that really dives into what a protected class is and the implicit bias around them. And the implicit bias that can happen in real estate around that. So we've written that new curriculum. It's first time being taught. So we'd love your feedback after taking the class on it. But February 10th, protecting the protected classes in real estate. You can see the other classes we have coming up as well. But like I said, we're hosting them every Wednesday at 1 p.m. For live CE class. So as you're look at your birthday date, if it's your renewal's up in 2021, you know, instead of being able to get them all in 1 week like you normally have before, if you want to take them live, you need to space out enough time, take them weekly. However, if you always as available on demand enough CE credits to get your license renewed as well through the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. Also just highlighting our member benefit flow plan. You know, we're striving to make every listing should have a floor plan. For $12, you can create a floor plan via the flow plan app. Links directly in the MLS. Colleen Kilfoyle told us it's so easy. It's almost like magic. She can't believe it's so accurate from just walking around the house with a cell phone. So a lot of people are using them. We tell you take advantage of, if you're not already using Planomatic or Matterport or something else to get a floor plan, this is a really easy way to make sure your listing has a floor plan on it. Another member benefit, we've partnered with Deposit Link as the earnest money deposit software of Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket. We heard from you guys that deposits in this fast moving real estate market was a hard thing. So brokers asked us to kind of vet the leading software products out there to try to get everyone to recommend to everyone. Maybe we can use the same platform so everyone's comfortable and familiar with it. And so Deposit Link came out on top. So if you're a broker, consider looking into them. Reach out to them. It's on our website how to do that. And it costs no money for a broker to take earnest money deposits via deposit link. So it's all charged to the buyer, and it's just a small fee there. Couple business updates. I'll just remind you guys that indoor gatherings at private residences are limited to no more than 10 people. That means whether it's showing, whether it's an open house, whether it's an inspection, whatever it is, no more than 10 people at a private residence. So if you do have showings, open houses, things like that, you want to keep a log of who's coming for and who's there, so that you have that for contact tracing in case something happens. As the state is requiring you to try to keep track and participate in contact tracing. Couple operations on the operations of CCIR. Most of the staff is still working remote, coming to the office as needed. We do have a drop box outside, so if you need to drop something off for us, you can just put it in the black drop box right there by the front door, which is locked, so it's secure. Or if you need to pick something up or want to drop something off during business hours, give us a call, talk to Julie. She's here at some point every day. She can coordinate with you to be here to pick up, or you can pick up or drop off whatever you need as well if you don't want to use the drop box. Committee meetings, we've decided when we put out the call of committees, will be remote for all of 2021 as a test as well. Our board meetings continue to be remote as well. And we continue to have in-person MLS tours halted, as given that 10-person restriction, it'd be almost impossible to run an MLS tour the way we have. We do still have the virtual tours going on, but once again, we'll talk later about the inventory, the listings, right? That's one of the biggest hurdles to be able to do anything at this point, is that listing inventory level. And then education and programming will continue to still be remote till we can do it under the state restrictions that they have. So on gatherings. So that's kind of an update of our association. On staff updates, we have some staff roles that have shifted starting in 2021. Not many to worry about, as a lot of them are still doing their same job, just maybe different titles as well. Nicole Corey's moved to our accounting and billing manager, and most of you know her as the one giving you invoices. If you haven't paid your realtor association fees for 2021, I encourage you to get them in right away as well. Patricia Pride just moved her title to Events and Partnerships Director, especially reflecting the new kind of responsibilities and roles due to lack of in-person events a little bit. And that just really updates a title to her role already. And then Danielle Smith has moved roles to create this member outreach manager position, which manages the membership process for the association, the MLSs, and also staffs our as our liaison to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. And you can also reach out to Danielle if you want any staffer to show up to your virtual office meeting. I'm available. Mary Allen in our MLS department, Whitney in our education department, Danielle, all of us are available to attend your virtual office meeting. So if you have an issue you want to discuss, just reach out and we can find the best person to put that person there in your virtual office meeting. We do have a new face as well starting this year, Scott LaJoy. He's our new government affairs director, a newly created position. It's a part-time position that also shares the other half of the time with as the government affairs role for the Housing Assistance Corporation of Cape Cod. So it's kind of a shared role between the two organizations, since we're working on so much together. Also with that, we'll be creating a government affairs committee. And so if you have interest in serving on that, email Scott at slajoy@ccior.com if you're interested in serving on that committee, as we try to get people to get that started hopefully in February. A couple updates on advocacy issues. The governor had a couple actions last week. He vetoed the climate bill. You may have heard about it. The bill contained a provision allowing towns to adopt a net energy building code, and also directed the Department of Energy to create a net zero energy code. The climate bill did a lot more than that, but that was the one provision that would have affected real estate more directly. prior to that, in the debate of the climate bill, we successfully lobbied to get real estate transaction as a leverage to mandate energy efficiency audits and upgrades at point of sale requirement out of the legislation. So that wasn't even in the final bill that the governor vetoed, but we did want to highlight, did want to let you know he did veto that legislation. On the energy front, we've also been working as an association with the Cape Cod Commission on their amendments to the regional policy plan on climate action and their subsequent climate action plan. On that note, once again, couple things that we were worried about, really using that real estate transaction as leverage for energy efficiency mandates was originally on the table, and that's not included in the regional policy plan the Cape Cod Commission will be discussing this afternoon. The governor also signed the economic development bond bill, which included housing choices legislation, which you might remember a lot. We've talked a lot about. It brings the threshold to pass pro-housing legislation at town level down to a simple majority vote of town meeting or town councils instead of 2/3. So there's certain provisions that now only require for zoning change 50% plus one threshold. The governor also line item vetoed a local town option to give tenants a first right of refusal to purchase multifamily properties. So the way the economic bond bill could have been, there was a provision to allow towns to be able to adopt that first right of refusal, something that we've opposed. This came out of the Somerville, Cambridge area. It also includes money for broadband access. And so that's really important, but that's in the economic development bond bill that I know some of our local towns and areas will be getting money for. Also in the transportation bill that was passed, there was money for the continuing the work on the design and the engineering for the new bridge replacements for Cape Cod. So lots of things affecting Cape Cod at the state legislative level this past week. All right, a couple things about our end of the year housing report before we get into Gay, who's going to talk and place our region kind of broadly in the national sector of second home and resort markets. For 2019, our annual report is out. It's at CapeCodRealEstateStats.com as always for our annual market reports and our December market reports. But we saw new listings down 3.7%. That was really interesting, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on another slide because when you look at it month by month, it got really, really interesting. Pending sales were up 21.7% and closed sales up 19.3%. In 2020, there was over 6,000 real estate transactions in the MLS through single family and condo properties in Barnstable County. So our median sales price was reaching for the year, it averaged at $479, although we saw in the second half of the year, most months it was well over $500,000. But that 479 is a 16.8% price increase as we look at that. Month supply, once again, we all know there's nothing for sale. We're down 65% in month supply of inventory, down to 1.4 months. That was on December 31st. There was 1.4 months of inventory on the market, and there was only 760 homes for sale between residential and condos. We'll dive more into the industry numbers, but once again, we're seeing high demand, eating up the inventory, and putting remarkably low properties for sale, as you guys know. All right, so this is where I was going to get into number of new listings, which is very interesting. This is our yearly market comparison. So you had $4 million worth of residential real estate sold on Cape Cod in 2020 when you had that $4.06 billion, $4 billion, yeah. And then that's almost a $1.2 billion increase from last year. So that's a lot more real estate, right, being sold here. You see the sales numbers increasing as well as we just talked about. What's very interesting when you look month to month on the new listings is that really we were up in every month from last year, except for March, April, and May. The biggest, lockdown months of the COVID era, especially April, which is usually our highest listing month of the year. If you look right in 2019, we had the most listings in April than we do any other month of the year. That's usually our highest listing month. It was not even close to our highest listing month this year because of the stay-at-home order that was in effect and people not wanting to list their property. So really, we ended the year slightly down in new listings, but it had that big gulf in basically, as we talked about it, March 15th to May 15th. Of that stay-at-home order really had a real effect on new listings, and we have not been able to climb back out of that thing to get our inventory back. I mean, what would this market look like a little differently if we had 475 more listings on the market because April had been at their regular peak from 2019? So just find that really interesting when you look at that. The other thing that we would assume, because as we all know that prices have appreciated and there's a different kind of buyer in the marketplace, a more well-heeled, well-to-do buyer in the marketplace right now, the volume of new listings, even though the actual number of new listings went down, the volume of them went up. So it kind of still just trends to what we've been talking about all year. Records for Cape Cod real estate this year, most dollar volume ever in a year. Most sales we have on record, our digital records go back to 2001. The registry had more sales in 1999 than they did this year. They think so. We would go with that 99 might have been a better year from the number of sales. We had the highest median sales price for a year this year, and we had the lowest inventory levels on record. I mean, I would assume that back, at some level when Cape Cod wasn't built out, they'd have lower inventory levels, but nothing that we would have had records for on that. So definitely a banner year for Cape Cod real estate as well. So I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to introduce our next speaker to kind of take you through a little bit, and then I can come back at the end with any questions about anything I talked about as well. But I'm going to Gay Cororotan, I hope I did that right. She's a research economist for the National Association of Realtors, and she's really dived into what the market's doing now and what the resort and second home markets are doing and any other things that NAR's research department, which works really hard on producing data, has maybe insight for you guys. So Gay, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello to our Cape Cod members, and also to Annie and Marissa. Glad to be here. As I said, any invitation from Massachusetts or any part of Massachusetts, I welcome and value. I lived in Worcester, Massachusetts for a year. It's close to my heart. First state we landed when we came from the Philippines way back.
One housekeeping thing. If people put in the question and answer section at the bottom any questions they have for you, then toward the end of your presentation, I'll moderate that and we can get into that a little bit.
Got it. Okay. So with that, let me now share my screen. Supposed to start here. Hold on. Okay, so everyone is seeing the full slide. Okay, so let me go. I think Ryan has already captured very well what's happening in the local market, and we're seeing that nationally. So it's a phenomenal, I would say, phenomenal expansion, phenomenal recovery. From the March, April, and May, I think through May, slump in existing home sales. So right now, nationally, existing home sales are running at about 6.7 million. This is the highest ever since the Great Recession, when existing home sales were around 7 million. So pretty strong recovery out there, and across all regions, we're seeing double-digit growth rates as well. 20% year-over-year growth rates. Hold on, let me just move this so I can move my cursor. Pretty strong price appreciation too. So nationally, prices are running at about 15% higher year over year. We're seeing that also across all regions, 10% compared to a year ago. And that's because really, as Ryan had already mentioned, also in your case, there's not a lot of inventory out there. So nationally, we're seeing just about 2 months of supply. Now, this is unsold inventory at the end of the month. 2 months, we need about 5 to 6 months. And I always think, why is it 5 to 6 months? And I guess that's because that's the time it takes to build a home, right? Maybe a bit longer in the Northeast, but that's about the time that it takes to build a home. And so, for every home that you sell, you need to have something that's there already. So definitely short on supply. And what is driving that? So that combination of high demand because of your low mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are at historic lows, less than 3%, I think, since May of last year. And that has just fueled, that demand, housing demand. Now people are thinking, why is there demand when unemployment rates are still high? They've gone down, of course, but unemployment rates continue to be high. And so where is this demand coming from? So one is, as I said, from the low mortgage rates. So nationally, you see there that the median rent of about $1,164 is a little bit higher than actually the mortgage payment, $1,139. So it's just become more affordable to buy a home rather than rent a home. And the other thing is, even if we do have this elevated unemployment rate, most of that is really coming from the hospitality. Unfortunately, that of course is hitting Barnstable, right? But it's hitting the workers in those sectors: hospitality, food services, leisure sector, and those are your workers again who unfortunately are not right now the people who are able to afford homes. So meanwhile, the people who are able to afford homes, we're all just working from home. Meanwhile, prices are rising. So they're also building up equity, having that equity to purchase for a second home. And so that's why I think we've seen this strong pickup in the housing market, even if, unemployment rates remain high. It's just a bifurcated market. And that part of the market where jobs are there, people who can afford a home, that's still there, but the people, who are losing are our renters, people who can't rent a home. So we've also seen, so one driving factor is mortgage rates, right? The second is, COVID, right? So we've had anecdotes that people are moving out of the cities, going to the suburbs. And so is this borne out by data? And so monthly, we conduct a survey of realtors called the Realtors Confidence Index Survey. And I think some of you may have already received that. And if you do, please answer it. But this is, a survey where we get from our realtors what's happening in their market on the ground. And you can see there that the share of existing home sales in the suburban, small town, resort, or rural area is about 86%, 86, 85%, and historically that's just about 80%. So we do see some pickup there. Now, is this because people are moving from the city to the suburb? Yes, some, but it's also because, maybe because of these restrictions and people don't want to show their homes. So you don't also have a lot of homes being shown in the central or core cities. And so people are showing their homes in the suburb. But definitely there's been a pickup of the share of existing home sales in suburbs, small towns, resort, or rural areas. And we also, as I said, part of this survey of our realtors is we ask them, do you see an increase in the share of clients who are seeking to buy a property in the suburb or rural area relative to January 2020? Right. So relative to January 2020, are you seeing more people from the city buying in the suburb or rural area? And nationally, 37% of our realtors said yes. Now, we don't have any data as far back pre-COVID, as we've only started asking this question. But nationally, 37% are saying yes, they are. In Massachusetts, it's a bit higher. 40% of realtors are saying they are seeing an increase of buyers from the suburb or rural area. In Vermont, it's also much higher, but certainly out in this northeast area, right, we're seeing a higher fraction of realtors saying that, yeah, people want to buy a property in the suburb or the rural area. And also here in the West Coast region. And I think some of that are people, of course, moving from, say, the Boston area to, to the suburbs, or in the New York area. They're also moving farther out in the suburbs. So now let me go to, some data on our, what we call the vacation home counties. So last year, and we did a study of sales and of counties that are what we call vacation home counties. And so we said, well, what would be a vacation home county? Certainly every county in the United States would have vacation homes, right? But what are those counties where you'd see the most vacation homes? And so we said, well, if 1 in 5 of the vacant housing stock, if 1 in 5 homes is used for seasonal, recreational, or occasional use homes, let's call that as a vacation home county. And so we got a list of those counties. And if you look at that list, Barnstable is actually number 2 in the list. Number 1 would be Lee County, Florida, but in Barnstable in 2019, you had about 62,000 homes that are used for recreation, seasonal, or occasional home use. And those homes account for 38% of the entire housing stock in that county. So these are the top ones: Lee, as I said, Barnstable, Collier, Cape May, New Jersey. So most of them are all in the East Coast, but in the New England area, it would be Barnstable here, and also Carroll County, New Hampshire, and Hancock in Maine. But you guys are outshining those other 2 counties. So again, from the survey, share of vacation home sales as of December 20 are also up. They're now at about 66% of home sales compared to just about 5% historically. And so what is that number? I missed the slide there, but it's about, I think, 30,000 homes, about 30,000 homes. And if we look at those vacation counties that I had mentioned, 63% of those vacation home counties saw sales gains. So I think this is about right? 20% year over year increase. And so this is the data that we are getting from our multiple listing services data. I think we also get it maybe from your MLS. But this is the number we saw. So sales in 2019 were 13,000. They're up at 16,000, 20% gain. Also, very strong gains in other vacation counties, but 63% saw sales gains in most counties, most vacation counties in the U.S. What about price? You had a 14% for Barnstable. You had a 14% gain there. Also, other vacation counties in the U.S., they're also seeing double-digit price gains. Florida at 10%, Cape May, New Jersey, also like 15%, Sussex, Delaware, 10%, Carroll and Belknap, New Hampshire, also above 10% growth. Wyndham, Vermont, 15%. So pretty strong growth in these vacation home counties. So it's, I guess it supports the story, yes, that people, so people did want to buy a second home during this time. I don't have, of course, I don't have the historical growth rate here, but an 11% growth and 15% growth, for example, is something that's pretty phenomenal by itself. Days on market, they're also selling faster. Barnstable, Mass, last year, properties were on the market for 61 days. Now they're just on the market for 47 days. Other countries across the US, also very strong decline in the number of days that properties are on the market. So again, let me just also cite Florida there, 104 days, now 62 days, half. They've saved about 42 days. So properties are just selling faster, and that's because of the lack of inventory. So there's just more demand relative to the inventory that's out there. Ryan had showed some stats, but this is just the stats also from our data that we have. So I think the homes listed, you were running at about, 1,200? But in December, as of December, we had like 16,000 homes for sale. Of course, a little bit lower for Nantucket and Dukes, but even they in those, right? So they also had strong sales as well.
In Nantucket and Dukes, it's all about access to data. It's not there as much than it is in Barnstable County.
Oh, okay. Then prices. So Ryan was saying, right, you're now running at about 500,000 in Barnstable. So of course, much cheaper, way out, much cheaper than what you get in Dukes and Nantucket. But prices, what? In January, from the data we have, prices were just about 380,000. So they're now hovering in the low 500. Median days on market, also 25 days from about 70 days over 2 months last year. So you're down to just about less than a month. Pending listings on realtor.com. So these are kind of like your contracts, right? Contracts for sale. So again, you see that boom after what is this? January, February, March, April, May, the slump, and then June, July, August, you just saw that strong pickup. It's gone down. I think maybe this is due to seasonality, but if you compare this still on a year-over-year basis, that's still a pretty high rate. Well, active listings, that's a problem. No listings. 4.6 million active listings on realtor.com in August of 2016. And then by the time we got to December, it's a year ago, we were at 3,000, and now we're just about 1,000. So if at all, the constraint on home sales is really the listings, So, and this, of course, would have to do with the COVID, the restrictions, but with the the discovery of the vaccine, more people getting vaccinated. We hope to see, this should increase, right? It's not we hope. So this could increase. And then maybe if you have people also selling their homes. So the median age, I think in Barnstable is around 55 years old. So they could stay in their homes and retire there, or if they may want to retire also in I guess maybe a warmer area. So you might see some sales there also, some homes for listing from those people who might be wanting to retire in another area. And also as listings pick up with the with more people getting vaccinated, with more people feeling comfortable that they can list their homes. So of course, this is the thing, right? What's the forecast? What's the outlook? Things can only get better because one, the economy is just going to get better. The unemployment rate is also just going to decline also. And with the economy getting better, of course, you'd have higher incomes. And also people have built a lot of equity, right? So if you owned a home, I think in Boston, I was just looking at the data. So you bought a home in Boston about 10 or 15 years ago, you'd have accumulated about $250,000 in equity from the price and from the fact that you've been putting down payment. So with that built up in equity, you can borrow against that and use that to buy a second home. Inflation rates are going to remain low also, and interest rates are also going to remain low still. So there'll be some pickup, but because unemployment rate has still not gone down to pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, the unemployment rate was running at 3.5%. And so the monetary board and the government are still on a pump priming mode, right? So of course, President-elect Biden has just announced that he will he will try to push for a 1.9 trillion stimulus program. So that will boost the economy, boost incomes. And also, some of that is going to broadband, as Ryan had mentioned, right? So broadband is very important for people who would want to work from home. So as I said, these are the factors affecting housing demand in 2021: high GDP growth, low mortgage rates still. Oh, and Biden's proposed plan to help first-time buyers. Of course, this will not help your second home sales, right? But for people moving into their first homes ever, if they want to say, if you're someone working from home, you could work from home and you're a first-time buyer, and you just want to enjoy good weather in the Barnstable area, you could be a first-time buyer. So of course, working from home will also mean that you have to have good broadband service. So right now, if you compare, sorry about that. If you compare some counties in Massachusetts, so we did this ranking. We looked at percent of workers who are already working from home. Actually, a lot of 6.8 of workers in Barnstable already do work from home. That's the, but 11% work in the Dukes County. But those are the two highest areas where people work from home. Now, broadband. 98.6%. I guess that's not good enough, right? But I think this was pretty high. Worcester is a bit higher, 98.9%, but you do need a reliable broadband service for people to work from home. So right now, just about 80% do have that broadband. The problem though with Barnstable is that, prices, why am I not seeing that? Something's happening here. But I had a slide that showed that prices in and I'm not seeing that slide here now. Prices in Barnstable, I think, are around listing prices right now on Realtor.com are hovering at about 700,000. So people who want to work from home are also looking for places where they could afford a cheaper home. So that key to lowering prices is really supply. Once you get that up, that will push prices down. So with that, let me end my presentation, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Yeah, thanks, Gay. Any questions for Gay? I wanted to also just update you real quick. Many of you I know have reached out over the last couple of days. Zillow switched their website from a syndication feed to IDX feed last Tuesday, as I've talked about before on the November Zoomed In. Please go reach out and watch that if you want to know more about that. But they're running into a lot of data problems. We spent a lot of last week trying to fix, and there still is out there. Apparently those that are also members of MLS PIN, they have a feed going where their photos aren't showing from there. They're having trouble with their feed. So you may see your listing without photos on it. Let me know about that. We can get that fixed for you. Also, the profiles, they have, they're having trouble linking some of your past solds on some of that stuff. So they know there's no problems there. So I know many of you have reached out around that. The other thing I would say to that is it's also raising a host of other issues that me and many others in the industry are talking about regarding their profiles, regarding the pre-foreclosures, regarding a bunch of other stuff, regarding the code of ethics, and and IDX rules that we're all working on and looking at as we get into that new territory. So as I've said before, when I said it on the November view, zoomed in, being a broker is not easy, and so I know there's going to be hiccups along the way. Anyone have questions for Gay? Gay, there was a question about the slide about the bifurcated market and clarifying what you were saying related to rent versus own. If you can just expand on the rent versus own portion.
Yes. So as I was saying, I was trying to kind of explain why we're having a strong market in the face of strong unemployment growth. And my point was that the people who are unemployed are those from the food services, hospitality sector, but those people are likely not the ones who are buying a home. You know, their wages are way below what is needed to afford a home. And so those people who are being affected by COVID are food service workers, workers in the hotel and hospitality industry. They tend to be the renters. Now, if you are also someone who's renting a home, so that in that sense, you might get impacted from that side, right? So you're buying a second home to rent out rather than to use as a vacation home for your family. So you could get impacted. But fortunately, we have the $300 pandemic support now, and hopefully that might increase. And we also have that initial $1,200 first time, the stimulus payment that just came. So the Biden plan has a lot of plans to help both renters. There's a $25 billion program to also support renters and landlords. Well, technically the tenants. The $25 billion will help tenants that will then pay for the rent that you will get as a landlord. That's just what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a lot about that, especially Cape Cod. You see it so directly that the economies of tale of two COVIDs, right? Like COVID's tale of two economies. We have an entire hospitality sector that is hurting here that we built a lot of our economy around, and then we have all these white collar jobs, people moving here or buying second homes here right now, spending more time out here than they ever have before, and it really is I think we see it better than anyone, that tale of two economies that's happening all over the country from what I hear from you, but we're really seeing it here big time. You had a slide where you were interesting about 21% were working from home in 2020. You were projecting 18% in 2021 and 12% in 2021 and 2022. What was it prior to 20? Like, what was it in 19 and 18?
Okay.
And how do you see what's that percentage you see working from home in the future compared to what it was prior to 2020 and 2021?
Right. Prior to 2021, it's about 6% nationally. And I can get you the data for just Barnstable, but nationally, 6% of people worked from home prior to COVID. And then with the COVID, I think right now that is about 25%. But it's higher for the white collar workers, right? So I think if you're in working in the computer area, I think even about 50 to 70% are still working from home. But again, across all occupations, the 6% rose to 35%, I think in April and May, then it went down to 22%. And this is data from the US Census Bureau. So it's going down, and the 18%, the 18% was a projection of many economists that we brought together in December. And I guess that is how they see the market. So it'll continue to go down and then to about 12%, but it'll still be higher than the 6% we had.
So you expect it to level off about 12%, which means we're going to have doubled our work from home, basically.
Exactly.
Pre-COVID to post-COVID.
Yes, it'll still be doubled.
Interesting. Also, there was a question that came in about a comment of increase in listings would lead to a drop in sales prices. I think what you were saying there is mean, that's just normally supply and demand, right? The more availability of homes for sale, the thing, but I guess what I worry is that there's so much pent up buyer demand. How are we ever going to get our listings back? Because we're not really an area that, like you said, the reason, and I'd never heard that before, the reason why you say 5 to 6 months is healthy for inventory because it takes that long to build a house. I'd never heard that as the reasoning before. However, here we don't build new construction, right, at any scale.
Right, right.
One off. So I worry how we're ever going to actually build that inventory back up going forward.
Yes. Yeah, that is a concern. And if you look at the factors that are causing that, well, one, it was the mortgage rate, right? Really, we've had low mortgage rates, and so that demand is just really outpacing the supply that's out there. I don't know if you get impacted by this, but National Association of Home Builders typically also mentions the zoning regulations. You can't build more dense housing because the zoning is for single family. And I don't know well enough about Barnstable to comment on that, but certainly, zoning, the regulations would be one way to increase that supply. Labor was a concern. We do, so there, compared to a 2012 or during the market crash. So we're still seeing, a lower level of people who are in the specialty trades services compared to the housing bubble years. So that's impacting it a bit. What else are the factors causing supply? Well, the lumber. Cost of lumber was also affecting supply, but I think it's generally also, and the main thing also is people aren't just moving. It used to be that people moved in 7 years, and now the median is 10 years. My worry is, I did speak about also the $15,000 home buyer credit, but if supply is not going to come and you have this credit that'll make it affordable for buyers, then you'll just also see prices go up. So the intent to help buyers afford a home won't materialize if you don't have the supply rising.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Annie, anything interesting to you that you wanted to ask Gay about more?
No, the presentation was great. I thought that figure showing that a mortgage payment was less than a rent payment was really interesting. Of course, on Cape Cod, we have practically no properties that can be rented year round, which makes it extremely difficult for those people who can't afford to buy.
A regulation? That's a regulation?
No. It's just the fact of the market.
Okay.
There's the sweet spot where people use it as a second home, or people use it as a vacation rental instead of using it as a year-round rental, right?
Yeah.
Fact of where you can make
it's for summer, right?
Yeah. Earl, thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate you taking the time to put us in the sphere of what's happening around the world, around the country. One thing I really noticed, and I've seen there, and I saw in your presentation, really in the Northeast, it's really like us in Vermont. Some of the snow communities in Vermont and New Hampshire are the ones that are really leading the way in the Northeast. And then obviously mixed in with Florida and probably some of the Arizona counties that we saw and things like that, where it's the warmer weather as well. And then the Utah snow counties as well.
Right. Yeah.
So,
okay. So I'll send the slides to Marissa, and feel free to share them.
Yeah, we will get them out. We'll get the slides out in our zoomed in email recap for our weekly e-newsletter that'll be going out. So thank everyone for joining, sticking with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions on anything we talked about.
Thanks so much. Thanks.